Hello and welcome to Let's Get Digital, the podcast where we talk about all things digital marketing, branding, etc. And I'm very excited to be joined by Kim Brooks, who is the head of marketing at Evermark. And so, Kim, thank you so much for joining me. And I'd love to hear just give a brief introduction, your background, what you do at Evermark now, and I guess how you got into marketing.
Wonderful. Thanks for having me. So, I have been in marketing for 27 years now, marketing and senior level management for 27 years, and absolutely love it. I've been at Evermark for four, I guess going on five, but owned my own agency for about 9 years in Florida, as a
Oh,
matter of
fun. Okay.
fact. Yes, and then we moved here to the Atlanta area, the greater Atlanta area, and I was a CMO, as Chief Marketing Officer for an agency out of Washington, D.C. for several years. I've had a wide range of experience from the kind of do it all yourself when I owned my own agency as my agency was growing to overseeing 100 plus people, mostly remote. We were a remote services company at Topo, which is where I was CMO, to now I am the head of marketing for a large manufacturer that we have are a pretty large company, but did not have a brand at all as recently as 2 years ago. And so we have been
Wow.
growing that brand. We call it our OBB, our one big brand. We had brand schizophrenia. We had a myriad of brands out there that really none of them had any kind of traction. So I was brought in to consolidate those and then build the OBB, the one big brand. And now we're starting to promote that brand pretty heavily. So getting back into a lot of grassroots marketing and really utilizing the best of what digital marketing has to offer.
Wow. So you're a pro, obviously. You have a ton of experience. So I'm curious, how did you get into marketing? Were you always drawn to marketing?
So it was really interesting when I was in high school, which was, I'm probably dating myself here, but I graduated in 1989. And when I was in high school, I was in the beauty pageant at the end of the
Oh,
year. And one of the things they asked me was, where do you see yourself in 20 years? And that was I was one of the final five. I was actually, I think it was second runner up. I think it was.
yeah.
That was a long time ago. But one of the questions they asked to the final five was, where do you see yourself in 20 years? And at the time I said, I see myself owning a advertising agency in
Wow.
Atlanta in
Really?
20 years. Yeah, it was very interesting because my career then took a big turn because I started off teaching high school. And there's many reasons for that, but I taught high school for 2 years before I was hired by Troy University to start their online distance learning program. And this is back when distance learning was correspondence. You got an email with, it might not even been email, it might have been mail, but with a syllabus, and you worked on
Yep.
your work on your own, then you mailed it all in to the professor.
My
So that
cousin
was
did
what
that.
distance learning was. Yeah, this was that one period of time where they were wanting to change everything to digital, to online, to virtual. So I was hired to do that supposedly for the summer and really just had a lot of success with that. When I was hired at Troy, we had, I guess it was about 100 enrollments per term, 5 terms a year. When
Wow.
I left, we had 4,500 a term, 5 terms a
Wow.
year. And we went from about $100,000 a year to about 29 million. And so it was a lot of success. In that process, my career exploded. It was steamrolling because as we were growing, my boss kept looking for ways to increase my visibility, but also increase my scope of responsibility. And so one of the things he did was make me the head of marketing as well as the head of distance learning. And so I started really throwing myself into marketing, learning about marketing, leadership, a lot of different things that I started investing my attention into and found that I really loved marketing. So that's where I was faced with, once I had done what I was going to do at Troy, I was faced with, do I continue in education or do I go into business?
Hmm.
And digital marketing was just taking off. So I left
Just curious, what year was that?
2000, 2005.
Okay, yeah, yeah. It's about then that started
Yeah.
picking up. Yeah.
Yeah, it was just really taking off as a, I guess, a, what is the word I'm looking for? A discipline. It was just
Yeah.
taking off in terms of integrating your digital marketing efforts. Everybody was starting to get the internet. I would say at that period of time, there were still probably about 30% of the businesses that were out there had websites. 70% did not yet at
Yeah.
that period in time. So I started working for one of the original digital marketing agencies and really learned everything there. I've been doing SEO as a discipline since that time. So I like to say that I've been doing SEO since it was called SEO. I don't even know that it was called SEO back then, honestly, but I've been doing it since then and just really learned everything about digital marketing. And so that's carried me through owning my own agency, through being a CMO, through working as a director of marketing for another manufacturer, and then now at Evermark. But I will say it's evolved a lot over the years, but a lot of the basics haven't changed. A lot of the
Mm.
basics, the things that worked back in 2005 still work today. And so ironically, 20 years after that day of that beauty pageant, I was owning my own agency in Atlanta. So it's really weird how you be careful what you speak into existence, right?
It's true.
Because
No, I
that's
totally believe
exactly
that.
it's exactly what ended up happening, despite the fact that I took many turns and detours getting there.
It's funny. It's like you put something out there when you're younger and then
Mhm.
you like fast forward, you're like, wait, I not to sound too hippy dippy, but you're like, oh, I manifested that did end up
Yeah,
happening.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
That's
very
very cool.
interesting how that works. There's a couple different things in my life that have been that way.
Yeah.
And so it's very interesting. But yeah, that's where I ended up 20 years later. And then since then, I've
Wow.
evolved into different companies. But 20 years from that date, I owned my own agency in Atlanta.
That is very bizarre. Very cool. Thank you for sharing all of
Hmm.
that. What's interesting
Hmm.
what you said that you like marketing is all about riding the wave because it's always updating and changing and you really
Hmm.
have to be adaptive and roll with the punches because we went from traditional marketing which some people still, still use, but now
Yes.
it's full blown digital. AI is coming in and you have to
Hmm.
really just be willing to try new things and expand. And I know like you're obviously did a really good job at that. What I thought was interesting that you said was that a lot of you still use a lot of the same tactics today
Hmm.
for digital
Hmm.
marketing that
Hmm.
you did all the way back in like 2005. So, would you mind sharing? I'm curious to
Absolutely.
know like what some of those are.
Sure. You mentioned AI. That one's definitely new. I
Yeah.
consider myself an early adopter. I'm using a lot of AI right now, but some of those traditional things that I'm using still, of course, are a website, making sure that you have a website that is not just pictures on a page that you can access online, but that has UI and UX. Back then, I think UI and UX were a thing, but we didn't call that UI UX. We just called it user friendly. Creating a really user friendly focused website, SEO, of course, search engine optimization. Back then, we didn't really have that much invested in terms of businesses as far as social media goes, but
Yeah.
we used these things that were very similar back then called listservs. And we
Yeah.
had discussion boards where we would that's how we did social networking back
Yeah.
in 2005. But some of the things that are really comparable to what we do today are video. We talked about that earlier. Video was used back then because it was something that was still around. Now, rendering a video and uploading a video might take a while. You might be doing it overnight, but it still was being used. It was being used on websites. It was being used. People were sending video. They were posting that in discussion boards. So that's one that remained stable. But then also, just in general, word of mouth was used through those discussion boards and through those listservs. But now word of mouth happens on a bigger scale with your social media platforms,
Yeah.
with TikTok, with Instagram. So it's really the basic premises haven't changed. Provide good content, really
Mhm.
make sure your content serves some sort of value. You're providing value to your customer. And if you're providing value, then you're going to build that following. As Seth Godin says, you're going to build your tribe. And then that tribe is really through word of mouth what helps get your business and your brand out there. If you build that tribe, they'll do the work for you. They'll evangelize your brand. So that's always
Mhm.
the way it's worked is if you build your tribe, they will help you. That's what I used at Troy as the, director of distance learning and then head of marketing there is build your tribe and your tribe will do the work for you. And so I would say that's probably the thing that has remained constant. It's
Mhm.
just the way we do that, the way we build our tribe. It's easier today because we have so many tools at our disposal. And it's also easier to help them evangelize your brand today by providing them with the tools to share your brand. It's really The same thing we've always done. We just can do it faster and quicker and have a broader reach than we could back then.
Yeah, no, that's very true. And I love Seth Godin, by the way. He has great advice. If you're in marketing and haven't heard of him,
Yes,
check him out. That's, yeah,
absolutely.
it's very, because when you said that, I was like, oh, but it has changed a lot. But it's true. It's very, if you go back to the basics, it really is,
Hmm.
it's all the same. It's just now it's quicker. And
Hmm.
so one other thing you said earlier that I thought was interesting is you said when you got to, I think you said when you got to your current company, Evermark, you had to
Hmm.
consolidate multiple different brands. And so I've
Hmm.
totally been in that position before. We actually work with, not anymore. We used to work with a lot of CBD brands. We stopped
Hmm.
because it's really hard to run ads with that. Like they treat it like a
Hmm.
controlled substance. So there's a lot of barriers.
Right.
A lot
Hmm.
of the companies that would come to us when we worked with had these, they'd come and they had these 10 separate brands. And they're like,
Hmm.
okay, we're hiring you for the one brand, but also can you manage the other nine? And have
Yes.
distinct personalities and build an audience
Mhm.
and email
Right.
marketing, everything, like everything. And even now we'll come into contact with clients who are looking for marketing and it's the same thing. They have this multiple brand thing and it's
Hmm.
like they get the idea and then run wild with it. Could you
Yes.
speak to how basically like the importance of consolidating a brand
Hmm.
and how, yeah, like how you went about doing that and then your opinion on having multiple different brands within kind of one umbrella?
Sure. One of the challenges with having multiple different brands, and like I was saying to you, I felt like we have brand schizophrenia because
Yes.
one of the challenges is there's so many different voices, there's so many different audiences,
Yep.
there's so many different angles that you have to take that what you can find yourself doing is chasing a lot and catching nothing
Yep.
because you're really trying to be everything to everybody and you have no consolidated voice, you have no consolidated tone, style that's going to create that predictability that audiences crave. There's really this thing called the science of predictability. And
Mm,
it goes back to if your audience, if your target audience can be able to predict what they are going to get from you, what they're going to expect from you, it creates behavioral reliability on their part, but it also helps them to increase their perception of your character. And that's what we would call it for an individual, right? Your
mhm,
character is tightly associated with behavioral reliability. But what it becomes as it relates to a brand is what they can expect from you on a consistent basis. So then it becomes your calling card. It becomes how they know you, your brand story, all of these things. And one of the basic tenets of marketing is people do business with people they like, know, and trust. It's one of the basic
mhm,
tenets of sales and marketing. That behavioral reliability, that predictability that builds that resonance with your customer creates that like, know, and trust. And so that's what helps to, again, build that tribe and let them evangelize your brand for you so that you have a broader reach. When you have a myriad of different brands, that's hard because they don't really know what to expect from each of these voices that's out there. It can be done. Like here at Evermark, we have branded products that are on our
right,
innovations line. That's one thing. But having a multitude of brands really diverts your focus, diverts your attention, and it limits the amount of resonance you're able to have with your target market and with your customers. For us, the way that looked was deciding what portion of our brand had the biggest identity, if any, and the
mhm,
Evermark name did. And so we consolidated it with Sherwood L&L, Evermark L&L. We were just known as Stair Parts and Home Depot. So there were
okay,
so many different things. And one of the challenges I faced was if I was going to do social media, what did I tell people to go look for? What name? Of course, I couldn't say go look for stair parts, and I would essentially be spending my time, money, and effort advertising for anybody that sold
mhm,
stair parts. So that was one of the things we really had to do was look at what's going to have the strongest appeal. We did market research. We did some test marketing on which name had the most commercial appeal. We do have two channels. We have B2B and B2C. Across both channels, what name was going to be appealing, what seemed to have weight and character and strength. And so we chose Evermark. That was the beginning of a lot of work. We had to rebrand everything, our website, we had to rebrand our packaging, our labeling. All of those things were part of it before we could even step into social media.
wow,
And then we're just now getting started on our social media journey and our video journey because we had to decide who we were. Who are
mhm,
we? What are we trying to say to our audience? And especially having those two distinct audiences B2B and B2C, there's some overlap. Your traditional Venn diagram, there's some
Mhm.
overlap there, but in general, we have different voices that we need to speak in to different audiences. So I would say, to sum that up, when you have a multitude of different brands, you're really diluting the strength and the resonance you can create with your market. And
Yeah.
when you do that, you're going to always be struggling. You're going to have more work. You're going to have to optimize more sites. You're going to have to create more social media profiles, all of those things that ultimately are going to, it can be done, but it's going to usually extend your time to market and to market saturation, which are things obviously that you want to do to build your brand. And it's going to weaken or at least challenge that development of character that is necessary for that like, know, and trust that builds the tribe. And I sound like I'm repeating that over and over, but it's so important is if you build that resonance with your audience, they will do the work for you. And it's essentially putting your marketing on steroids because then you're just continuing to be you, be your brand, and continuing to build that resonance, but your brand is spreading exponentially instead of linearly.
Yeah. No, that was a great answer. And I know it's really complicated. And I've struggled with that in the past because I've worked on myself and then I started out, I still act actually, but in
Mhm.
LA, and everyone has a personal brand, or a lot of people do now.
Mhm.
Like the
Mhm.
rise of the influencer created that. And I
Yeah.
think, even like personally, I've struggled with that. I've had and clients who've come to us, they're like, hey, I have 4 different personal brands. Which one do I
Mhm.
pick? Or can I do all four? And that's
Mhm.
something that like I encounter often, and it's interesting because you really have to take the time. I think people get eager to just jump into just one or all of them, and you really, I think
Mhm.
it's a part of, you need to like self-reflect, whether that's for your company
Mhm.
or your personal brand, and just think of what am I maybe best at? What do
Mhm.
people like? What does the market need? There's a lot of things that you have to think about before just committing to
Absolutely.
one brand. What would you, for people who are looking to solidify or rebrand or, yeah, bring multiple brands together, what type of advice would you give them for how to pick or focus on which one to focus on?
Yeah, that is a difficult question. It's
Yeah.
always challenging. And like you said, the first thing is self-assessment, right?
Yeah.
And that includes the personal brand or the business. Who am I? What do I want to do? What value do I bring to the table? What is my highest value? And when you really look at what is your highest value and who is my target customer, that's going to tell you a lot about the brand you should choose and the brand you should create, because you want something that's going to resonate. Again, I keep using that word, but it's vital. Resonate with your audience, that they're going to instinctively understand, and that looks like other brands, especially if you're a new brand, that they're used to doing business with. So for us,
Mhm.
it's a strong one word name, and it was something that had basic appeal that wasn't too trendy because we had been in business 30 years. So we wanted to make sure that it looked like that. For an individual, I think it's even more challenging because the
Mhm.
temptation is there to be everything to everybody, because you're like,
Yeah.
I don't want to miss out on this audience. I don't want to miss out on this one. But if you really stop and think, what am I best at? Then that's going to guide those decisions, because you can always diversify later. You can diversify your brand once you started building that audience and building that relationship with whoever your primary target audience is going to be, where your true value add is. If you do that, then you can always diversify later, and you're probably not going to struggle as much as if you try to do it in the beginning. So I would say it really starts with a good self assessment of either the brand or the individual. What am I best at? Who am I really talking to? What do I want them to do? Do I want to build a relationship with them? Do I want them to buy from me? Do I want to influence them? What do I really want them to do? And that will determine whether you use a business brand, whether you use your name, whether you're catchy, whether you're trendy, whether you're hip. It's whatever your audience expects to see, because again, it goes back to that science of predictability and building
Mhm.
character, and that know and trust is the same thing. You want to be as close to what they're looking for as you could be. And so that's going to really drive the brand you move forward with, the name you choose, whether you brand under your personal name or something that's more trending and catchy, like the business. One that I had years ago was the Business Babe, and that was
Oh, I like
years ago,
that.
younger in my career. And it really resonated with my audience, who were mostly female at the
Mhm.
time. And it was, you can do it all. At the time, I was a young mother, and it really worked for me. Now, it probably wouldn't work for me today. This is just an example because I'm 53 years old. That's not going to be the same brand
Right.
tone that I would choose today because that's not my audience today. Today, my audience would be middle-aged women, those kind of things. And so the business babe would not be a name I would choose. And that's just one example.
Yeah. No, that was great. That's really a great answer. I know it's very hard for people, again, especially if for an individual, because
Mm-hmm.
people have different facets of themselves and companies have different facets to them.
Mm-hmm.
So really dialing in can be tricky, but I think it's worth taking the time and not rushing that. I've seen that happen
Absolutely.
where you're excited to do it and you're just like, I'm going to solidify. And then you create this mishmash and then that's not working either. And you have to start again. So
Right.
great
Yes,
response.
absolutely. Getting the brand right is critical. I would say it's worth spending the time on, like you said,
Yeah.
because it's going to determine a lot about your success and who you draw to you, both
Mhm.
professionally and as a brand. In other words, the people that want to work with you, the people that are willing to give you money to work with them and all of those things, especially when it comes to a personal brand. If you get your brand wrong, it can really limit who wants to work with you and who's willing to work with you, and et cetera. And if, for example, you're trying to be an influencer and you choose your name, that can be problematic because they want the focus to be the company that you're working with, not your personal brand. So it all
Mhm.
depends on what you're trying to do and what you're trying to accomplish. And you really need to dial into that and know, and not just, oh, I want to make money. That's too broad, right? But that's where a lot of people start. And that's where a lot of the problem starts, is not being laser focused on what you're really trying to do and whether you are at the front of that brand or whether or not you want the brand to exist without you so that you're attractive to companies that maybe want you to promote their brand but under their name. If
Exactly.
your name is too relevant, then it can be problematic unless you're a celebrity, of course, unless you have celebrity pull.
No, it's true. I actually just listened to this TED Talk. I can't remember his name. He's a marketing and business guy, but he said always start with your why. So go back
Mhm.
to what it is. Again, like you said, if
Mhm.
it's I want to make money, dig a little
Mhm.
deeper. It's more what is your
Mhm.
purpose or your mission.
Mhm.
And if
Right.
you just make money, I feel like you gotta have a little bit more than that, especially today. I feel like people feel that connection, whether you're into something just for the
Right.
money or you're really invested in it.
Mhm.
So, I think going
Mhm.
back to the drawing board and focusing on that helps. That was very
Yes, and
helpful.
there's a niche for everything out there.
It
There
really
really
is.
is. So sometimes people say, "Oh, I've got to be everything to everybody, or I'm going to miss this. I'm going to miss that." But they're really. I spend a little bit of time every single night as I'm falling asleep on TikTok, just
Mhm.
watching and learning and seeing what people are responding to and what people are liking and sharing. And it's always so interesting that there is literally an audience for everybody and everything. It makes more sense to create a unity, a resonance again with your ideal customer, because that's going to make them more willing to share, to comment, etc. Because in general, people aren't going to comment on something that they wouldn't, for example, want their friends to see them comment
Mhm.
on. In other words, if you're appealing to an audience that there isn't that resonance there, you're not going to get near the engagement because you want them to feel comfortable acknowledging your work, agreeing with your work, and sharing your work. And if it's something that is not congruent, then that's not going to happen. So you could be posting the best content in the world and someone's just going to watch it, but they're not going to share it or they're not going to comment. And they're not going to like it because there's not that congruence. So that's one of the big challenges, and really getting to know yourself, your audience, and making sure there's congruence there.
Totally. Yeah, no, it's great advice. So, going in a different direction, but you said you guys are
Hmm.
now starting to get more into social media and video because you rebranded.
Hmm.
What How have you
Hmm.
used video in the past or currently use it or are looking to use it? And what do you think speak to the importance of video today, specifically in
Yeah.
2024? Because really
Well,
quickly,
no doubt.
oh, I think like it used to,
What?
I remember back years ago, it was really like blog heavy. Like everyone had to have a
Hmm.
blog and that was their main kind of mode of
Hmm.
communication. Today, it's very video dominant. We focus mainly on video. So yeah, I'd love to hear your.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. We're a visual world, right? We're a
Yeah.
visual, humans are visual. What we see always impacts us more than what we even hear, than what we read. We are just visual creatures. So that's one of the primary reasons at the base root of it, why video is so important. But video also lets you connect with your customer, a different way if you can make them feel something. And that's true whether you're talking about selling a product, selling a service, selling a person. If you can make somebody feel, and video is one of the best mediums for that, right? Because you can engage all the senses. You can engage visual, auditory, you can engage the mind, you can put words on the screen. And in fact, they tell you to. One of the things TikTok University says is don't ever underestimate words on the screen. You don't want too much of it. But all of those different things, you're engaging so many parts of the human that it makes it more compelling. And anytime you're going to be more compelling, you're going to be more successful when it comes to, invoking your audience to do something. One example, one way that we're using video, we're using it several different ways with several different paths. One is through install videos. These days, the days of reading instructions for putting things together are gone, right?
Yeah.
When we can do an install video with a QR code on packaging, it saves paper, helps, the
Oh,
environment, saves plastic, saves all those things. So you can really play at that aspect of it that, when people are like, well, why didn't you put in, just instructions? This is better for the environment. We have a QR code, we have video. So that's one angle we're taking with video, is doing everything, all of our former paperwork, which is install guides, even warranties, is having video versions. So that's
wow.
one angle that we're taking on, yeah,
That's very smart.
non-promotional video. But interestingly, we did this one non-promotional, in which was an install video for a new innovation that we launched. So primarily we're in the business of selling stair parts and doors, but
Okay.
we also have an innovations line that are just a myriad of different things that are home improvement or projects for around the home. And one of them is called Pet Proof, which I have to admit I
Wow.
had to go back and eat crow on, because I said that's not going to sell, that's going to be difficult, because I couldn't figure out how to market to this small niche that wanted this. It was basically a PVC covering that covers the weather strip on your door. And it's probably because I wasn't as familiar with that niche, which is cat owners. Even though I did own a cat, mine didn't go outside, so they never clawed my weather strip. So I didn't realize how big of a thing it was. And in fact,
Yeah.
this is one of those instances where I honestly can't say this happened a lot in my career, but where I had to go back and say, I was really off base. I was really wrong. And I was really wrong about the target market for this product. So we posted an install video on YouTube before we ever launched the product. We didn't have it for sale anywhere. I just really posted it on our YouTube channel because I got it back from the company that created it, and I just uploaded it real quick to our YouTube channel because I didn't want to lose it. We started getting, after about a month, we started getting like 5 inquiries a day about this
Wow.
product. And we had to figure out where and how to sell it, because we couldn't put it in our Home Depot agreement is for stair parts and doors. So we couldn't put it there. So we actually just put up our own little mini e-commerce site just to sell this one product.
Wow.
And we put it on TikTok Shop simply because that install video generated that much demand. And that was an install video.
Wow.
So very interesting that I wouldn't have thought of that as a promotional piece. When it comes to promotions, again, video helps you build that connection with your audience. One of my favorite videos I've seen lately is a commercial. I think now it's on TV, but it started off just on social media. Is from Progressive, and it's the stair remodel. The guy goes to pick up his date for prom, and the dad's looking up at the top of the staircase and he's, isn't she beautiful? And the guy's all confused because he's like, where's my date? And the dad is talking about his stair remodel. And
Oh,
it's a
that's
Progressive
funny.
insurance commercial. Yeah. And so
I
that
didn't see
really
that.
caught my attention since we're in stair parts, but it was just a really good video. And it was probably 20 seconds
Yeah.
and easy to shoot. And I just was like, wow, that's really smart. But video in general just really helps you create content that does connect with your audience, because you get to engage so many of the senses. You can evoke emotion, you can evoke the whole WIIFM, what's in it for me. I think you're probably, when you were talking about the know your why, we're talking about Simon Sinek. He
Yes,
does a
thank you.
lot of,
It's Simon Sinek. Thank
yeah,
you.
yeah, I love him. He's another great one to follow on LinkedIn, Twitter. Yeah, he's fantastic. And another thing that he talks about a lot, and he's not the first one to talk about this, but he talks about it a lot, is making sure that you're clear when you're communicating to your customer on the WIIFM, what's in it for me. Because people are always, they buy products from people they like, know, and trust, but to solve problems, some
Mm,
sort of problem or some sort of need. That goes true whether you're talking about a company or whether you're talking about an individual. If people are going to do business with you or get something from you or allow themselves to be influenced by you, it's because you're providing the solution to a problem that they have, whether that problem be as minor as makeup or hair, or whether that problem be as minor as what I'm going to wear to prom. And I
mhm,
say those are minor, even though they're major at the time, they're minor in the big scheme of things, but it's still a problem. It's still a problem they're looking to solve. So people buy products and services to solve a problem, and they buy them from people they like, know, and trust. If you remember those things and incorporate that into your video strategy and use video to build that rapport and to solve that problem and to build trust all at the same time, you're really going to win. And then video content can also be repurposed so many different ways. You can build an article from that video content. You
mhm.
can use that video to drive a QA, a live session. You can use that video and create snippets. You can stitch that video. There's so much you can do with one piece of video that it's frequently where a lot of businesses start their content marketing. And that's one thing. Content marketing, like you said, years ago was the blog. Today, blogs are still relevant. You need word on page, but video is definitely prioritized in the search engines. Video is definitely prioritized. Google loves itself, right? So when you post video on YouTube, Google is
Yep.
always going to prioritize that. So video is a great place to start your content journey. And then you can pull from that video and create other pieces of content from that video. One video can turn into 20 different pieces of content. So that's why I love it.
Yeah, that was yeah, all fantastic. That was really it was really great. And it's true. I don't know if you follow Gary V, but no? Oh, okay. He's like the he talks a lot about digital marketing, but he's
And is
like
that
the
VEE?
what?
Is that VEE?
Yeah, VE.
Gary V?
Gary V,
Okay.
yeah. And
Okay.
yeah, he started like years ago and he's always on like Instagram. He's all over social media, but his big thing is
Mhm.
content. And so he says I think he creates more content than anyone else. Like the amount of content this guy puts out, I don't know how he does it. We're talking like thousands of pieces a week. But what he does, and
Mhm.
he talks
Oh,
about
wow.
it in his books, are he'll literally film these like longer form videos and then chop them up so
Mhm.
he has it for even a month, or
Mhm.
then he'll by adding a different text
Mhm.
or adding a different filter. And
Right.
so he always talks
Mhm.
about reusing your content. So what we do even with
Mhm.
our clients is we'll go in even just once a month for some of them, film a ton of different video, longer form ones, and then you chop those up into reels and they have content
Mhm.
for a month, sometimes longer. So I think people get
Absolutely.
overwhelmed by worrying about, oh, I have to film a million different things. But it's if you really
Mhm.
focus on creating like a few longer, strong pieces of content, you can do
Right.
so much with that instead of thinking like,
Mhm.
I need to film 100 videos in a month or something. Like
Absolutely.
you can simplify it. Yeah.
Absolutely. I took images from my pet proof video that was the install video. I took images from that, stills from that to create my TikTok reel for the
Yes.
shop. I also took stills from that to create a carousel ad.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. One piece of video, good, strong video content it can provide you with a month's worth of content or more. And it does really engage the audience. The prevalence of TikTok, the popularity of TikTok has proven that, right?
Oh yeah.
Is people want that visual content and they feel connected. They start to feel like they know these people that
Hmm.
they're watching videos of. They truly believe they have a relationship, a friendship, a camaraderie with this person that they're watching videos of or this brand. And so it goes again to that basic tenet of marketing. Very first thing I think I learned about business and marketing was people do business with people they like, know, and trust. And
It's
so if
true.
you remember that and you build that trust, you build that rapport, that connection, it's going to take you a long way, both as a
Right.
personal brand and as a business.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So one of the last questions I wanted to ask was, do you use any traditional marketing now? And by traditional
Mhm,
marketing, obviously like websites, etc., but stuff like billboards or flyers.
mhm. So we do some flyers, some print media, especially on our B2B side, because
Yeah.
one of the things that is a big focus of mine, especially this year in my department, is helping our customers to sell more of our product. And since we're in manufacturing, that does tend to have a more traditional bent in that area where our customers who are selling to construction companies and larger builders who are then selling to smaller builders. So we're sometimes two-step, three-step away from our customers. Our customers need tools, some of the more
Yeah.
traditional tools, to help sell more of their products. So we do quite a bit of print still in terms of our own print media, print production. We are getting away from print catalogs. We're going digital and interactive with our catalogs. So we're not using that as much, but we did up until
Mhm.
the last year. We do use trade shows. I've noticed a
Yeah.
resurgence of trade shows. There was one that some people in our company just attended called the Hardware Huddle, where a lot of influencers in the building industry were there. And that got us a lot of freeway. Like it got us a lot of attention from the influencers that were there that were just looking for content. So they were
Mhm.
filming some of our innovative products and really posted about those for free without actually contracting with them. They posted a lot of that content for free, and we're seeing a lot of leverage from that. In fact, to the extent where I'm looking to work with more influencers. So that's not necessarily traditional, but that's back to that again, the events, right? A
Yeah.
lot of we had gotten away from the events, especially with COVID and trade
Mhm.
shows, but we're seeing a resurgence in that for sure. A lot of newer influencers are going to older trade shows, such as the International Business Show, I think is what it's called. IBS is
Mhm.
yeah, International Business Show. A lot of influencers are going to that International Builder Show. I'm sorry. A lot of
Oh, good. Okay.
influencers are going to that. And that's something new. That's an old show that's been around for a long time. But now influencers are going to that show to learn about new products and to get new content. So that's one of the interesting trends that we're seeing is old meets new. So traditional meets new in terms of another thing is companies having events and then
Mhm.
blogging about them or doing flash mobs. It's really interesting how there's some of that convergence of old versus or old with new. But in terms of like really old media, we're not doing commercials, we're not doing television of that sort.
Yeah.
Although there is some local on-screen advertising and local businesses that I find appealing. We haven't done it, but it's interesting. And so that's another place where video comes into play. A lot of
Mhm.
on-site video seems to be making a resurgence too, like in
Yep, we do
hospitals,
that.
medical centers, that kind of thing. So that seems to be making a resurgence. And then I just don't think you can ever underestimate the power of direct mail. And that's
Mhm.
coming back a little bit too, because now the USPS has this one department that allows you to do these really innovative lumpy mail campaigns. And lumpy mail is just mail you feel. It opens or increases open rate like to 80% because it has
Oh, I
some
always
sort of
get those.
feeling to
Yep.
yeah, to
It's
the
tricky.
package. And so yeah, and so the post office is now doing these little things. One example is they have this viewer that reminds me of the old Viewmaster, but
Mhm.
it's flat, and they are incorporating video into this Viewmaster that is going out to direct mail list. And so it's really neat because when they get this Viewmaster, they put it on and they watch the video through the Viewmaster.
Oh,
So
that's
that's something the
cool.
USPS is actually driving. So it's very
Wow.
interesting again how older media is really converging and promoting new media. There's other things they have where it's a card that you open a card and you have a screen inside the card and there's a play button and there's
Mhm.
a video there. So those are some of the things that we're exploring. But in general, I would say the basic premises of marketing, which again are directly communicating with your customer, whether that's through direct mail, social media, et cetera, are still working. All of those things are still working. So really that's where our traditional lies is in providing print collateral to
Mhm.
our customers who can then use it with their customers and then getting back into some of the direct mail. We did a pretty big direct mail campaign last year and then we're attending events where we've actually ramped up our trade show attendance, and those are things that were around 20 years ago that we're seeing a resurgence in. And I think it's because people are dying for connection, and all of those
100%.
things are things, yeah, that build connection, that allow for connection. And so I think that's the trend I'm seeing is moving back to really building that authentic connection with your customers so that instead of broadcasting, you're microcasting. And
Mhm.
I just came up with that. I really like that.
Yeah, write
Instead
that
of broadcasting, you're
down.
microcasting. Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that because that's the truth. We had gone to broadcasting and
Mhm.
now we're microcasting.
Yeah. No, that's so true, and I've noticed the same thing. A lot of our clients in different industries, they're all wanting to do trade shows now, and we've
Mhm.
even started looking at, like, marketing trade shows and stuff like that, because it
Mhm.
100%, I think after COVID, people feel very isolated. I think people have
Mhm.
gotten very antisocial because of technology, and so I think even if subconsciously they want to be around other people who are interested in the same things. And I love what you said about the convergence of the old and the new, with even the influencers attending the trade shows, which I've seen a ton of.
Mhm.
A lot of our
Mhm.
city clients would go to these trade shows, and it would just like this influx of influencers, which at first really
Right.
surprised me. And then I was like, oh no, that makes sense. And then even they'll just, one of them will post at your booth, or and then you'll get a
Right.
bunch of attention. So it's really
Mhm.
interesting because it's not that traditional marketing has totally fizzled. I think people think
Right.
like, oh, no one does mailers anymore, or no one's sending out
Mhm.
magazines. But I do think there's a place for them. We just
Yeah.
actually sent out flyers for the first time, and I didn't know how it was going to go, but I was surprisingly, I was like, oh,
Mhm.
okay, people are actually looking at mailers again.
Yeah.
So
Try making it lumpy. You might see even a
I
really
know
big
that's what
increase.
I like that. And I've seen that. One of our clients sent us an example a while ago of the screen. It's literally like a video on like a, like a paper type thing almost.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
There's
that's what
different versions I've seen. Yeah.
yeah, it's a very cool idea. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, so before we go, last question.
Mhm.
If you
Mhm.
what's a piece of advice you'd give someone who is interested in getting into marketing or branding or something in this type of industry?
I would say do your homework. Look at companies that you want to emulate, people that you want to emulate, and really do the time. Put in the time to learn it and really understand the basic tenets because they haven't changed. And that's really what I want to emphasize is that the things that work haven't changed. Building relationships, being trustworthy, building character, and really put the time into learning those things because everything else, like it used to be that, and I'm not obviously having an education background, I'm not knocking education, but it used to be you had to go to school, you had to get a 4 year degree in order to be hired. That's
Yeah.
not the case anymore. It really boils down to knowing your stuff because there's tools out there now to do almost everything that you used to have to learn in school, right? There's tools out there now for copywriting with AI. So you
Mhm.
don't necessarily need to spend 4 years. Again, I'm not knocking education. I think there is still a time and a place, but I'm saying the most important thing is really learning the basic principles, learning how to do the strategy, because with the tactics, there's strategy, there's always strategy and tactics. Strategy is the high level, it's why you're doing what you're doing, and the tactics are what you're doing. It used to be that you had to go to school to learn both of those things. You had to spend 4 years and a degree. Still get the degree, get a degree, but when it comes to execution, just know that you need to know why you're doing certain things because that has not changed. And I don't ever see it changing. I don't think why you're doing things is ever going to change. It's just the way we do them, the tools we use, the methods we use are going to change possibly. But with everything I look around and see, not that much has changed in terms of the basic principles with anything. It's just
Mhm.
how we execute. So I would encourage somebody to really focus on learning the how, the why, in terms of how we build a brand, how we build a business, how we communicate with our customer, how we build those relationships, and then why we're doing those things. As Simon Sinek said, that you
Mhm.
mentioned, knowing your why and really spending time on the why of the customer and the target audience. All of those things are much more important because those are things that often can't be replicated totally by a tool. Like AI, there's always going to be someone, in my opinion, that needs to control the AI. And that's going to
Yes.
be the person that understands what I just was saying, the why, the how, and the actual execution of doing the tasks. That's probably going to be mostly AI focused in the years to come now, but especially in the years to come. So the people that are going to make it, who are going to thrive, are going to be the people that can prompt the AI, people that have enough knowledge and that have enough really experience with the theories and the concepts and learning the basics, it's those people that are going to thrive despite AI, because there's still going to be someone that needs to prompt the AI. So that would be my biggest piece of advice, is learn the basics. Don't worry so much about the niches of, am I going to learn SEO? Am I going to learn social media? Am I going to learn copywriting? Am I going to learn this, that, or the other? But learn the whys, learn the strategies of what works, the basics of what works, because then you can find tools out there today and with AI that can do all of the execution, but you're not ever going to be out of a job, because they're still going to need someone that knows those things to prompt the AI to do what it does. So that would be my
Absolutely.
advice.
No, that's fantastic advice. I totally agree. Yes, people program the AI. So unless we reach like
Mm-hmm.
Terminator status, which hopefully that
Right.
doesn't happen, then we need humans.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, right.
Yeah.
I think those are the people who are going to succeed in modern society with AI, are the people that really look at work from a high level and
Yes.
understand the whys and the theories and the concepts, because you cannot prompt AI without knowing those things. And
Exactly.
so it's going to be those people that will continue to thrive and grow in this AI world, that basically become the handlers of AI. But you have to know the basics before you can do that.
Yep. That's fantastic advice. Thank you. So I really
Mhm.
enjoyed talking to you. You're super knowledgeable.
You as well.
Thank you. If people wanted to connect with you, where is the best way to get in touch, find you online, etc.?
So on all of the social platforms, I'm Kim K. Brooks. And so, let me take that back. On LinkedIn, I'm Kim K. Brooks. I just recently changed my brand on social media to the first Kim K. So that's
Oh, I like
my
that.
brand on all the
Yeah.
social platforms now is the first Kim K. But on LinkedIn, I am Kim K. Brooks.
Okay, perfect. I love that's very smart. I like that. So watch out, Kim Kardashian.
Exactly. A
Okay,
little
well,
bit older than her, so that's why I claim the first
you
title.
don't look like it. Well,
Thanks, thanks.
thank you so much for joining us. This has been really fun. And yeah, hopefully get in touch with her. She's very knowledgeable, and follow Evermark if you're in need of home products. Thank you, Kim.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, same.